Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here, but I also want to be honest with you from the very beginning. I'm not an expert on this. We do not have a research department at the museum. And I also found out we do not have a lot of data about men. So maybe my title, How Men Use Museums, is a little ambitious. But I will give you insight into how we work with men on a daily basis at an art museum here in town. So even though I do not have a lot of data, men use the museum, and I want to share some formal and informal feedback, some observations, and a little bit of history. And why not begin this presentation by showing a picture of a man, the director of Aarhus, Erland Højersten, standing on top of an artwork, also made by another man, Olafur Eliasson. The roles will probably not surprise anyone here. It fits perfectly with statistic on this subject. But let's begin in 2006. I guess many of you remember this show called Racing Cars, The Art Dimension. It was held at Aarhus. A lot of people had a lot of different opinions about it. You could call it a macho show. You could call it sculptures on wheels. The racers were installed in a unique installation made by the Danish artist Ingvar Kronhammer, with actually a wonderful soundscape made by the Danish composer Martin Hall. I myself was so curious, so I went all the way from Copenhagen to see this show. And I must admit, I have never ever seen so many father and sons at an art museum. So at least for that, it was interesting. It was, maybe no surprise, made by men and for men. But it really reached out to an audience which we normally did not have at Aarhus. It was, as you can hear, before my time. But when I hear what I hear from the staff is that, for instance, there were waste everywhere. So they didn't use the waste basket. So there was new habits, new people coming into the house. It also gave new status, maybe not in the environment where we normally go, but for instance, among cab drivers, everybody in the city knew about this exhibition and wanted to talk with the client about it when they sat in the cab. And still now, so many years after, we are sometimes met with the question, when will you do a show on motorcycles or something like that? But the bad thing is, it has been really hard for us to maintain this audience, this group. When I ask around, they say they were, when I ask my staff, they say they came and they left and they have never been here since. So, but at least we got some men into the museum. I will not talk so much more about exhibitions. We try to balance it, of course we do. We have an exhibition right now with Agne Slot Møller, and we try all the time to find the right balance between artists, women artists and men, and sometimes we succeed and sometimes it's a little harder. But just to say that when we do a new exhibition or when we discuss wayfinding or when we do other things, we work with personas. So for instance, we think about, okay, what would be great to show or to think about if we have this guy called Carsten, he's 45 years old, he works at university, what would he be looking for? What kind of interesting stuff could this exhibition offer for him? And then we have different kind of personas depending on the exhibition. So in that way we still include men in our thinking, but we do not, at least until now, we haven't done a new racing car exhibition. And this can be a helpful tool to keep thinking about how can you say, the biggest possible audience. So yeah, data we do not have so much, but as you can see, men at Aarhus, 42%, it's not too bad. but we have to remember that this came out of 74 answers, and whether it's local community or tourists, I have no clue, but of course it also plays a role in this. If we look at social media, we can see a diagram. The green pillar represents men and the blue women, and here, as so many other places, women are overrepresented here. Also the decision makers. And we can see kind of the same pattern on Facebook, and it's the age you can see underneath. One thing I always find interesting is that when we change our programming, we also change our audience demographic. So when we do a different show, or if we do a thing like this evilness theme we had in a month because we were showing an exhibition with the Chapman brothers, then for some reasons a lot of men were attending in these things. So I think it's just interesting that we can get them to come when we change the program or do things which has a special appeal. 2 years ago, we opened Aarhus Public. It's 1,900 square meters. We have an open studio, the Atelier, where artists, we have artist in residency programs, so they are here for a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then we do a lot of different things in the salon. We have studios for school program and weekend programs. And we have an auditorium, and a lot of other things are going on. But in this context, I just want to underline 2 objectives of Aarhus Public. The first one, to make art accessible and visible to far more people, far more often. It also includes men, of course. And then maybe in this setting, it's also interesting to put some focus on data. And everything we did in Aarhus Public also was to gain a greater insight into our users and how they experience art. If you want to reach a new audience, which I think all museums once in a while, it's so important to do something else than you normally do. And one of the things we did, which we can see that men find it really interesting, is our digital stations, which we did together with local projects in New York. Especially the eye tracker is very popular among men. The technology we use here attracts a lot of, especially fathers, like my father types, when they are not at the Railway Museum, they're here. The eye tracker tracks the movement of your eyes as you view a work of art. And hopefully it encourages us to reflect on how we see the world and why we do not all see the same things. It helps us also to take a long look, and that's another thing when we talk about data, because we can see from other user survey that people are spending maybe 5 to 7 seconds per artwork, and as an art historian it really hurts. So here people are sitting in average 1 minute and 49 seconds, which is interesting in itself. The next installation is the portrait machine, the art of creating. It's a little more playful than the first one. It creates portraits based on works from the museum collections and your body, the way you stand with your body. So you can call it a new way to browse in the collection. It also challenges the normal museum behavior, and people are really having a lot of fun. The artists who are sitting just next to the portrait machine, they are laughing all the time, oh my God. But they're having a good time, and we get a lot of information about these. We get all the portraits, which is interesting in itself to look at. Yes. And then we can also see that it's hard to see here, but there is an OLED screen. Maybe you can see it here. An OLED screen is transparent, so you can look through it. And it looks like when you stand here outside the recording booth, you can look at the screen, and then it looks like the people are sitting inside. And you can hear them talk about this artwork, which is on the first screen. A lot of men, again, I'm sorry, it really sounds like, you know, these cliches, but they really, really like it. I met some men from Horsens. They went all the way to Horsens. They had never been to an art museum, but they wanted to see the OLED screen. And for me, it's not a big thing, but it's definitely interesting for other people. The recording booth make room for more intimate, personal conversations. You choose an artwork. As you can see, they do here. They are all on display somewhere in the museum. And then the conversations are recorded, and you will get a GIF file afterwards showing you and some of the words from the conversation. Or you can just say no, and then it will be gone forever, of course. And I think it could be interesting maybe also for you in a minute to hear one of these conversations, because this is my daily vitamin pill. Every morning when I walk into the museum and I go up to my office, I sit down and I listen to one or two of these conversations which came in the day before, because they remind me about the audience. They remind me about how people talk about art. I learn a lot from the conversations. I see a lot of different types of people from a lot of different countries, and it's really, really a lot of fun. I actually feel like I meet the real people, and I always feel very connected to them. So there's also a lot of emotional reactions. There's a lot of fun going on, of course, too, but also very often people are like, "Did you say that? Why have you never told me that?" Or, you know, you can just feel that it's like people are saying things that they're not normally saying. It's wonderful. Now, but I will just show you one of the conversations. It's not something totally special about that conversation, but it's 3 boys, 3 teenagers. I have no clue why they went into the box. It was Thursday afternoon. It's a year ago, so it was just one I had on my computer. And then we can just listen to what they say.
Who is she going to meet? Her boyfriend?
Not me, that's for sure.
She's going to go and meet her mother, who she's not seen for 3 years, because her mum lives in Australia. She lives in America, so she wants to look her best, even though she should probably change out her nightie first, and maybe put a bit more mascara on.
You want to just listen more?
Nah.
I think she's going on a date, because the painting or picture is called Women Without Men. Or maybe she's a lesbian.
Oh yeah. Here we are. Yeah, here I thought we were. No, that's the same one. Okay. Kan det være? But it is a vitamin pill, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Isn't it lovely to hear those conversations?
Do they get questions when they say it?
Yeah, good question. There's always a starter saying different things, and then after that, a question is coming up. And some people are, really using them, and other people are not using them at all. And if some of you are interested in more information about this place and the process and the learnings, we made this book, and I would be happy to share it with you. But I think there's some of the questions in here. I do not remember all of them, but this one, tak, the one we just saw, the first question is, I just, if the technique didn't work out, I just wanted to be sure that we had the text here. The question on the screen is, who is you going to meet? But we also have other questions like, maybe I can just send it around and then it will give you an idea about what kind of questions we ask. And what is so important about the questions is that we really try to reach everybody. And it's a hard thing. We try to reach the kids and the professors, the people who know a lot, and we don't want them to feel at least excluded. And we have tested and tested and tested and tested and tested, but that's another story. But yeah, it was just to show you some of the wonderful data I think this machine gives to us. So that was inside the recording booth. And now I'm going to share something which is actually quite embarrassing for me to share. We did a podcast 1.5 years ago. We had the show here around in town. Maybe you remember Katarina Grosse in Minneparken, called The Garden. And we wanted to make a podcast, and we did. It was 2 episodes. Jagten på naturen in Danish, The Quest of Nature. You can find it on Podbean. And in many ways, it was very successful, and we liked it, and people liked it. And in the process of making it, maybe you know the feeling, we didn't have time to ask a focus group to hear their opinions, even though we know that's the way to do it. But then we thought, okay, now it's out. Maybe we should ask a focus group, just so we can learn ourselves for the next time. And then we asked 3 women and 3 men to come by, and they have heard the podcast, and we wanted them to respond on it. And then suddenly, this lady said, you really have a problematic gender things going on here. And at the same moment she said it, I could just so clearly see it. The podcast, and normally I think I focus on things like that, so therefore I find it so embarrassing. It begins with 2 men, Mimik Rosing and Jakob Wamberg, fantastic men, and they also get a lot of space in the broadest sense of the word. So they're doing this wonderful job, they're explaining, and there's nothing wrong with them. We give them the role of those with the big view on the world. They get a lot of time to talk without, you are not able to hear the interviewer, it's totally quiet. They're placed in a neutral sound position, so it just improves the impression that what they say is universal and true. And on the other hand, then we also have women experts, Annette Vansø and Eagleton, but when they talk, they are very often interrupted by a voiceover, and they are always placed out in nature. And maybe also therefore they do not have a lot of time to talk, because it's really windy out there when we do the recordings. Okay, yeah, fine, cut off. So it's really, really embarrassing that we give so different roles to our experts. And maybe we could just have put some background noise on the interview with the men at Universitet. It would maybe have created a better balance. That was at least what the target group said. But to be honest, 4 persons in the target group had not given the gender issue any thoughts. And one, a young woman, she thought it was critical when she was made aware of it. But the last one, a man, he did not find it problematic at all. But it was quite interesting because he repeated the value writing by referring to the men as experts, while he didn't say the same thing about the women, which were also experts. I hope to write an article about it one day, because I think it's really what you sometimes do without even thinking about it. You're in a hurry, then suddenly you end up with a podcast, which you should hear anyway, but is not totally fair to a diverse group of people. So as you can see, it's about how we represent some of these patterns, or whatever we should call it. So it's not only about the men out there, it's very much about ourselves. And even though I think men would like this one. And then I also want to share just some observations from an external anthropologist. We asked her to look into as public what did we succeed with, what was more problematic. She did 50 interviews at different times of the day and weekdays and weekends, and with a diverse group of the audience. And you can see it's just something she said. There's no research really behind this, but still I thought it could be interesting for us now when we do not have so much data. It was exclusively the male guests I interviewed at Aarhus Public who expressed interest in the development of meeting facilities and network development at Aarhus. They had a lot of focus on product development. We have a shared office space, so that's probably where she also found these men. And then she has done a lot of user surveys at Danish museums, a lot at art museums too. If I have to say something in general about the difference between men and women during their museum visits, I have, through various studies, noted that women are very interested in life stories and relationships, where men often want to know more about the artist and to what extent the artists were recognized at the time and how exceptional they are. And now when we are talking about so much about men and women, I just want to mention that I think Louisiana Channel is doing such an amazing job when it comes to this. They have no surveys, no marketing budget, but 65% of their viewers are men, and 61% are between 18 and 34. So, and the last year their films have been seen 5.4 million times. So they're just making some very cool stuff. And then I will end just by showing you the program. One can have their presumptions about which show will appeal to who. But who knows, maybe we actually should start to collect a little more data on men and women. So that was it.